What do you think about when Karl Malone gets included on teams like this?
I like it. I mean, I think he's top 20.
He got a 13-year-old pregnant. Timeout? You need a timeout? A 30-second?
Patrick Beverly is out here questioning his loyalty to Karl Malone, and now Victor Wembanyama just blew the whole thing wide open. This scandal is spreading fast. NBA legends are turning on Malone, calling him out hard. His personal life didn't just stain his image, it wrecked what could have been a flawless legacy. And now, people are saying the mailman's reputation is officially getting returned to sender. Everything exploded when Victor Wembanyama went online demanding Karl Malone face consequences. It all started when the NBA's official history page wished Malone a happy 62nd birthday on July 24th, 2025. They expected love, nostalgia, and heart emojis, but what they got was absolute chaos. Thousands of fans flooded the comments, tearing Malone apart and reminding everyone of the dark past that the league seems too eager to forget. But here's where things got wild. The real headline isn't the anonymous fans typing furiously from their couches. It's that Victor Wembanyama himself stepped into the fight. The 7'4" French prodigy, the so-called future of the league, proved he's not too young or too foreign to know about what went down with Malone decades ago. He threw his massive presence straight into one of the NBA's ugliest controversies, and everyone noticed. Now let's make something clear, because the details here are key. Wemby didn't write up some polished message about justice or ethics. He didn't call a press conference, didn't send out a public statement through his agent. None of that. Instead, the young star simply reposted a wild video meme from a fan account featuring content creator Lil Rodney's son losing his mind over the NBA's tribute. In the clip, the man shouts in disbelief, saying words to the effect,
"What? Oh no, see that's what we not better do. Police, lock his ass up. Yes, you need to be under the jail." Like what? What you say? Yeah, arrest him immediately.
Wemby didn't even say a single word. Not a caption, not an emoji, nothing. Just a straight-up repost that hit harder than any long speech ever could. The silence spoke volumes. It was crystal clear to anyone paying attention. This 21-year-old phenom from France, a country where American basketball scandals barely make the news, had just co-signed the belief that Karl Malone's past should not be forgotten, and that some people think he should have faced real consequences. Instead of the mailman getting the birthday love the NBA probably expected, the internet went nuclear. Fans across social media exploded with reactions to Wemby's bold move. Spurs fans, in particular, started drawing wild connections, some that probably shouldn't have been made, but the timing made it all too tempting. They pointed out how Malone was infamous for throwing elbows during games, and how San Antonio's own legend, David Robinson, had once felt that exact force on the court. The whole thing started feeling almost poetic. Nobody knows if Wemby was aware of that specific piece of NBA history, or if he was just reacting to Malone's long-circulating off-court controversies. But either way, the message landed with impact. The Spurs' loyal fan base, known for their sharp memories and deep sense of pride, took Wemby's post as symbolic payback. Now, let's get real about where this all began, because this controversy has heavy roots. The situation goes back to 1983, when Karl Malone was a 20-year-old sophomore at Louisiana Tech. Reports surfaced that he had an inappropriate relationship with 13-year-old Gloria Bell. Under Louisiana law, the age of consent was 17 at the time, making the case a serious legal issue that could have meant prison time. But no charges were ever filed because Bell's. Reports say Gloria Bell's family decided not to press charges, believing that taking legal action would destroy Karl Malone's shot at a basketball career, and in turn, any financial help he might provide for the baby. That child, named Bell, would later grow up to become an NFL offensive lineman, drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 2008. But despite his success, his bond with his father was basically non-existent for most of his life. When they finally met after Demetres graduated high school, things didn't turn into a heartwarming reunion. Far from it. Malone allegedly told him it was too late for a father-son relationship, saying he'd have to make it on his own. Demetres later compared the situation to his mom going to a sperm bank, a heartbreaking way to describe the emotional distance and total absence of a real father figure. That single quote hit fans hard, revealing the deep pain left behind by Malone's choices. As for Karl Malone himself, he's shown little to no regret publicly. Every time the issue comes up, he seems to shrug it off. Back in 2023, when the allegations resurfaced and social media reignited the conversation, Malone brushed it all aside with cold indifference. He said, "I'm not discussing any of that backlash. I don't care. That's my life. That's my personal life. And I'll deal with that like I've had to deal with everything. So whatever." His words shocked many. That kind of detached attitude only made people angrier. That lack of accountability added even more heat to the fire surrounding his legacy. So when Victor Wembanyama reposted that meme, fans saw it as a bold stand, something few in the NBA have ever dared to do. Across Reddit, Twitter, and Instagram, people praised Wemby for having the guts to touch a topic that older players and even league officials have carefully avoided for decades. Social media went wild. Memes flooded every corner of Twitter with captions like, "Wemby just reposted a video saying Karl Malone should be locked up," paired with crying laughing emojis and thunderous applause reactions. Fans couldn't get enough. To many, it wasn't just a meme, it was a statement. Supporters saw it as a generational wake-up call, a moment showing that today's young players aren't afraid to call out the dark sides of the legends who came before them. They're done staying quiet just because someone once dropped 30 a night. Of course, not everyone was cheering. Critics quickly jumped in, saying Wemby should stick to basketball and avoid old controversies that happened long before he was born. But those voices didn't stand a chance. They got completely drowned out by the tidal wave of support. Fans made it clear, the new generation isn't here to let history get rewritten or cleaned up just because a player has a statue or a Hall of Fame ring. The message was loud. Accountability matters now more than ever. But if you think Wemby's silent repost was the wildest reaction from an NBA figure, then you clearly haven't seen what went down when Patrick Beverly found out about Malone's past. His reaction on his own podcast was straight up jaw-dropping. Patrick Beverly, the man known for speaking his mind no matter who it offends, went off. This is the same Pat Bev who spent 12 seasons in the league pestering superstars, locking down on defense, and dropping sound bites that always hit headlines. His entire career, and now his media presence, is built on being that brutally honest voice no one else dares to be. So when he fired up the Pat Bev podcast with Roan, fans knew they were about to witness something raw, unfiltered, and way too real for TV. Nobody saw this coming. Patrick Beverly himself ended up becoming the story after learning something that left him totally stunned and speechless. It all went down during an episode of the Pat Bev podcast released around August 7th, 2025, when he and co-host Adam Ferrone were doing a fun little segment, a hypothetical all-time NBA draft. The idea was simple. Pick the greatest team ever by choosing from basketball's biggest legends. Sounds harmless, right? Not this time. Pat Bev, always a student of the game, showed mad respect for the old school greats and drafted Karl Malone for his lineup. He even listed the mailman in his personal top 20 all-time players, strictly based on stats and skill. 2-time MVP, 14-time All-Star, 3rd all-time in scoring with 36,928 points, and one half of one of the most dangerous duos ever with John Stockton. On paper, the choice made total sense. But then, Ferrone hit him with the question that flipped everything upside down. Should off-court controversies affect these rankings? That's when things took a sharp turn. Beverly admitted, with complete honesty, that he didn't really know much about Malone's personal life. That single moment of honesty turned into one of the most unforgettable podcast moments in NBA media history. Ferrone calmly explained the backstory, that in 1983, Karl Malone, then a 20-year-old college player, had an inappropriate relationship with a 13-year-old girl. The second Beverly heard it, you could feel the shock through the mic. His reaction was pure disbelief. No script, no filter, just raw emotion. The man literally called a timeout on his own show.
What do you think about when Karl Malone gets included on teams like this?
I like it. I mean, I think he's top 20 greatest players to play.
You think Karl Malone is? But what about his off the court stuff? You know, does that factor in it at all?
I really don't know a lot of off the court stuff about Karl.
He got a 13-year-old pregnant. Timeout? You need a timeout? A 30-second?
No, fool.
Full?
I need a full timeout.
Trying to process what he just heard. That clip went viral in hours, racking up millions of views, and everyone agreed it was the most real reaction ever caught on a sports podcast. When Ferrone confirmed that Karl Malone was 20 years old at the time, and that it all happened while he was a college student in Louisiana, Patrick Beverly froze. His entire vibe changed instantly. His jaw dropped, his eyes went wide, and he just sat there in total silence for several seconds, which, for Pat Bev, is like watching a storm suddenly go still. You could feel the shock.
Wait a second. I have a question.
Talk to me.
When you said 13-year-old pregnant, was he 16?
I think it was a grown-up. Let's check. He was 20, and he got a 13-year-old pregnant. That doesn't seem cool to me.
Wow. I didn't.
The kid did go on to go to the I think the NFL. Demetrius Bell was his name, but I don't think Karl Malone was in his life at all, and he said he treats it like his mom went to the sperm bank.
The clip blew up instantly across every social platform imaginable. Fans couldn't get enough, praising Beverly for having the only real human reaction to hearing something so disturbing. Comments flooded in saying things like, "This is the most genuine Pat Bev has ever been," and "His silence said everything." For once, the internet wasn't roasting him. They were giving him props. Even NBA players jumped in on the moment. Lou Williams reposted the clip with a simple, "Yay, buddy," and Beverly himself quote tweeted it saying, "I did not know this, bro. I must live under a rock." That one line sent fans into a frenzy. The irony was wild. Victor Wembanyama, a 21-year-old from France who's only been in the league for 2 seasons, knew all about Malone's old scandal, while Patrick Beverly, a 37-year-old veteran who's been around NBA locker rooms his whole life, was completely blindsided. That contrast hit hard and said a lot about how deep this cover-up ran. It showed just how effectively the NBA has managed to keep this part of history buried. For decades, Malone's past has been swept under the rug while he kept getting invited to All-Star weekends, celebrated at tributes, and treated like a legend without ever facing the real conversation. The truth? The NBA knew. The Utah Jazz knew. And yet, for years, nobody said a word. Back in the 1980s and 90s, the media that covered the NBA already knew about the Malone situation, but they chose to stay quiet. Reporters, executives, and insiders all looked the other way, deciding that a man who crossed serious lines could still be celebrated as one of America's greatest athletes. Patrick Beverly's simple, honest question on that podcast cracked open something deep. It exposed the rot sitting underneath professional sports and how easily the truth gets buried when it involves a superstar. Fans online were quick to connect the dots. They pointed out that Beverly had spent years in the same league that constantly honored Malone, attending events where the mailman was treated like basketball royalty, smiling through tributes, and seeing him highlighted in documentaries and history reels. Yet somehow, despite decades in the game, Beverly had never heard about any of this. That silence spoke volumes about the bubble protecting certain legends, no matter what they've done off the court. The NBA has always picked and chosen which scandals it lets see the light of day. Some get front-page coverage, others vanish behind flashy stats and highlight reels. But in that one podcast moment, Beverly's raw reaction ripped the mask off the league's selective memory. Millions of fans were suddenly face-to-face with a truth most had never been told, that one of the game's most celebrated icons had a past that would have ended any modern player's career before it even started. And just when people thought the conversation couldn't get any more intense, another story surfaced, one that showed Malone's behavior didn't stop there. This time, it involved someone who wasn't about to let any shady conduct slide. And she was married to one of the most fiercely competitive, protective NBA stars to ever play the game. Kobe Bryant and Karl Malone, 2 legends, one explosive clash. The 2003 to 2004 Los Angeles Lakers were supposed to be untouchable, a dream team built for domination. They had Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Gary Payton, and the veteran powerhouse, Karl Malone, a Hall of Fame forward chasing that elusive championship ring after years of coming up short. On paper, this lineup looked unstoppable, but in reality, it was a ticking time bomb of egos, rivalries, and behind-the-scenes tension that was destined to blow up. Before the Lakers' season unraveled on the court, something even bigger happened behind closed doors. A private confrontation so intense it nearly turned physical between Kobe and Malone. This wasn't just another locker room argument. This was a full-on personal feud that exposed just how deep the cracks in that super team ran. To understand it, you've got to know the backstory. And it's wild. When Malone first arrived in Los Angeles, he quickly built what seemed like a real friendship with Kobe. They didn't just talk hoops. Their families got close too. Their wives hung out. They set up play dates for their kids, and Kobe saw Malone as a big brother type, a seasoned vet who could help guide him through the chaos of a championship chase. It was genuine respect until everything changed. What happened next blindsided everyone and shattered that trust completely. It all went down around November 23rd, 2004, during a Lakers home game against the Milwaukee Bucks at the Staples Center. Whatever unfolded that night didn't just strain a friendship, it turned into one of the most shocking off-court moments in Lakers history. Karl Malone showed up to that Lakers game in full cowboy mode, hat, boots, and all, while recovering from knee surgery and sitting out in street clothes. But what was supposed to be a casual appearance quickly turned into one of the ugliest off-court moments in team history. According to multiple accounts, including Kobe's then agent Rob Pelinka, what happened that night left Vanessa Bryant feeling completely uncomfortable and disrespected. Here's where things get dark. During the game, Malone reportedly called Vanessa over, asking her to sit beside him and give him a big hug, joking that it would end up on magazine covers. Then, things got even stranger. He allegedly asked if she liked him and hinted he had a secret to tell her, but said she had to keep it quiet. Vanessa, shocked, reminded him that she was married and that he was old enough to be her father.
Any way to mend your relationship with Karl? I mean, some time has gone by. Is there any way that you can see to mend this problem?
No, not on a personal relationship. I mean, when all that stuff happened, I mean, we kept our mouths shut. It is what it is. I mean, you let him and his family deal with that situation or whatever.
Malone's alleged response? Oh, like your daddy. The room instantly shifted. That comment crossed a line no one could excuse. But it didn't stop there. Later that night, when Vanessa was walking Malone's young son back to him after the game, she tried to keep things lighthearted and asked about his cowboy outfit, saying, "Hey cowboy, what are you hunting?" What came next turned an awkward situation into something truly disturbing. According to multiple reports, Malone replied, "I'm hunting for little Mexican girls." The comment was blatantly inappropriate and offensive, referencing Vanessa's heritage in a way that shocked everyone who later heard the story. Vanessa immediately walked away, furious and shaken. On the car ride home, she told Kobe exactly what had happened, and that's when everything exploded. Kobe Bryant, known for his intensity and fierce sense of loyalty, wasn't about to let anyone disrespect his wife, especially not a teammate he'd once considered a mentor and friend. Kobe Bryant, a man who never backed down from anyone, didn't waste a second after hearing what Vanessa told him. Furious, he grabbed his phone right there in the car and called Karl Malone directly. The confrontation was explosive. He reportedly shouted, "Stay away from my wife. What's wrong with you? How could you do that?" You could practically feel the anger through the phone. In a December 2004 interview with the Los Angeles Times, Kobe opened up about how deeply hurt he was. He said Malone had been like a mentor, someone he genuinely respected and trusted, which made the betrayal cut even deeper. He made it clear there was no misunderstanding or exaggeration. To Kobe, this wasn't locker room gossip or tabloid hype, it was personal. But when Malone's side of the story came out, the response was classic deflection. Through his agent, Malone denied making any kind of move on Vanessa. He brushed the whole situation off, saying the hunting comment was just a playful joke taken out of context. He even went as far as calling the entire thing a Hollywood soap opera, claiming he wanted no part of it. That dismissive tone only made things worse, especially after how serious Kobe had made it clear the situation was. The fallout was massive. The tension between them never healed, and it played a major role in Malone's quiet exit from the Lakers after that season. The two never reconciled. Their friendship was done for good, but Malone's problems didn't stop there. His reputation for crossing lines, both on and off the court, had already made him plenty of enemies around the league. His physical, often reckless playing style rubbed a lot of stars the wrong way, and one Hall of Fame forward finally had enough, calling him out face-to-face in a way that nobody saw coming. Dominique Wilkins, the human highlight film himself, once straight up called out Karl Malone in a moment that exposed just how far Malone's rough playing style had gone. The NBA of the late 80s and early 90s was a whole different battlefield. Players threw elbows like they were part of the game, and what would be an instant suspension today was just called playing tough back then. It was raw. It was physical. But even in that brutal era, Karl Malone stood out for taking things too far. Malone built a reputation for hitting hard, not just with power, but with a little extra edge. Hidden elbows, quiet jabs to the ribs, and low-key cheap shots that made opponents furious. And while most players just tried to avoid his wrath, Dominique Wilkins wasn't built like that. The Atlanta Hawks legend was fearless, a scoring machine who averaged nearly 25 points a game for 15 seasons and went toe-to-toe with everyone, no matter how big or aggressive. So, when Malone's antics crossed the line during one heated matchup, full of sneaky elbows and gut punches meant to intimidate, Wilkins had enough. After the game, he went right up to Malone's face and let him have it. The confrontation was explosive, and his words hit harder than any shove ever could. Wilkins looked Malone dead in the eye and said, "You're a cheap shot artist. You're not a man, not a real power forward. You go out there just to hurt somebody smaller than you. That's your game." Those words silenced everything around them. Wilkins didn't yell, he cut deep. It wasn't just trash talk, it was a challenge to Malone's entire reputation as a player. And he didn't stop there. Dominique Wilkins didn't just call Karl Malone out, he compared him to someone who did it right. He pointed to Buck Williams, another powerhouse from the same era, saying, "Buck Williams is a man, a real power forward. He's strong, he plays the game the right way. You're a cheap shot guy, plain and simple. No two ways about it. I've got no respect for that." Those words hit hard and summed up exactly what Wilkins, and a lot of players, felt about Malone's reputation. Wilkins made the line crystal clear. Playing physical is part of the game, but playing dirty crosses into something else entirely. And honestly, the receipts are impossible to ignore. In 1991, Malone threw a vicious elbow that split Isaiah Thomas's forehead wide open, leaving him with 40 stitches. Then, in 1998, he knocked San Antonio's David Robinson completely unconscious with another brutal hit to the head. And it didn't stop there. He bloodied Steve Nash's mouth so badly it earned him a suspension, and he cracked Brian Grant across the face hard enough to draw a $10,000 fine. This wasn't an isolated thing. It was a pattern, consistent and undeniable. Malone's elbows weren't accidents, they were weapons. Even legends like Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the classiest players to ever touch a basketball, had enough. Hakeem called out the Malone-Stockton duo directly, labeling the Jazz as pretenders who hid behind a clean image while playing one of the dirtiest games in the league. He accused them of throwing sneaky elbows, setting dangerous picks, and using underhanded tactics that didn't match their polished public personas. Coming from someone as respected as Olajuwon, that criticism hit with authority. Over time, analysts and historians have agreed. Whenever lists of the NBA's dirtiest players are made, Malone's name always shows up near the top 10, sometimes even higher. Karl Malone's elbows got so infamous, they basically became a highlight reel of their own. You can still find entire compilation videos showing just how often he used that move, and not in a good way. Analysts have said for years that Malone and John Stockton weren't just a legendary duo, they were one of the most aggressive pairings the league has ever seen. The crazy part? Back then, that kind of physical play was praised as toughness, while nobody dared to question what was happening off the court. But it wasn't only players who started getting fed up with Malone's style, even team owners were paying attention, and one of them finally snapped. Enter Leslie Alexander, the owner of the Houston Rockets, who decided to make a public stand and demand that the league suspend Karl Malone. When an NBA owner, someone who usually stays quiet and lets the players battle it out, steps into the chaos, you know the situation has hit another level. It all went down during the 2004 playoffs when the Lakers faced the Rockets in the first round. Malone, who was 40 at the time and pushing through injuries, was still out there throwing his weight around like it was the 90s. His target, Houston's young superstar center, Yao Ming, the 7'6" phenom from China, who was only 23 and still learning the brutal reality of NBA playoff basketball. What was supposed to be a showcase of skill and strength turned ugly fast. Malone's constant elbows, shoves, and body checks on Yao didn't just frustrate fans, they infuriated Alexander. He felt like Malone wasn't competing anymore. He was bullying. And when a team owner calls you out publicly, that's not just trash talk. That's a statement to the entire league that your reputation has crossed from tough guy to problem. Karl Malone, armed with 4 decades worth of roughhouse tactics, decided to give young Yao Ming an education he never asked for. Game 4 of that 2004 Lakers-Rockets playoff series turned downright brutal. Malone's so-called veteran savvy looked more like street brawling than basketball. In the fourth quarter, he sent Yao crashing to the floor while fighting for position, a move so harsh that fans and analysts alike said it looked more like an assault than a foul. And that wasn't even the worst of it. Earlier in the same game, Malone undercut Rockets forward Boston Nakbar on a fast break so hard that Nakbar had to grab Malone's jersey just to keep from slamming into the hardwood, tearing it in the process. Instead of heading to the locker room to change, Malone leaned into the chaos. In true mailman fashion, he kept the ripped jersey on for the rest of the game, flaunting it like a war trophy, as if the damage proved his toughness. By the next day, Houston Rockets owner Leslie Alexander had officially had enough. Before Game 5, he decided to go public, and his words hit like a thunderclap across the league. He didn't mince a single syllable. Alexander said, "The way he pushes people around is just wrong. It's not good for the sport, it's not good for the league." He flat out called for Karl Malone to be suspended, saying the so-called physical play had crossed the line from competitive to flat-out dangerous. And this wasn't coming from some thin-skinned executive either. Leslie Alexander was the same owner who'd watched his Rockets win back-to-back championships in '94 and '95. He knew what real playoff basketball looked like, so when he said Malone's behavior was out of bounds, the message was loud and clear, even by the rough. Leslie Alexander wasn't some overreacting executive. He was a man who knew the difference between competitive fire and straight-up dirty play. But when he called out Karl Malone publicly, the response he got was pure, unapologetic mailman. Malone's reaction dripped with that trademark arrogance he'd shown time and time again toward anyone daring to criticize him. After putting up an impressive stat line in that same Game 4, 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 steals, Malone stepped to the mic and brushed off the Rockets owner like he was nothing. With a smirk, he said, "I love him too. I'll never be looking for a job from him. I wouldn't recognize him if he walked through the door. I could care less about him, really." Then he added, "I wouldn't even know what he looks like." It was the kind of line only Malone could deliver. So dismissive, it was both believable and disrespectful at the same time. For a guy being accused by a billionaire team owner of playing dangerously, Malone looked completely unbothered, almost proud of the chaos he caused. But that's who he'd always been. Deny, deflect, and move on like nothing ever happened. That same playbook carried him through scandal after scandal, as if controversy was just another part of the game. The Rockets would go on to lose that playoff series, and Malone kept chasing that elusive championship ring, but he never found it. The Lakers fell to the Detroit Pistons in the finals, and not long after, Malone quietly retired without ever winning the title he'd spent his entire career pursuing. Still, Alexander's criticism echoed louder after Malone's exit. His words cut through the stats and highlight reels to reveal a deeper truth: that Malone's willingness to hurt people, cross lines, and dismiss consequences wasn't just part of his playing style. It was a pattern, one that followed him far beyond the hardwood. It wasn't just on the court. That ruthless attitude soaked into every part of Karl Malone's life, leaving a trail of damage that people are still trying to process even decades later. The truth is, the league always knew who he was. They saw the elbows flying, the blood on the court, the players walking off needing stitches, and still, they kept celebrating him. Year after year, they invited him to All-Star weekends, rolled out red carpets, and posted glowing birthday tributes on official NBA accounts like nothing ever happened. Leslie Alexander had seen through that illusion back in 2004 when he called it out publicly, saying what everyone else in power either ignored or was too scared to admit. Malone wasn't just physical, he was dangerous, he was dirty, and worst of all, he simply didn't care who got hurt, whether it was an opponent on the hardwood, a 13-year-old girl back in Louisiana, or even a teammate's wife in Los Angeles. The pattern was always the same: take what you want, deny everything, and treat anyone who questions you with smug arrogance. And that, not the stats, not the trophies, not the scoring titles, that is the real legacy of Karl Malone. Behind the numbers and the highlight reels lies a darker truth the NBA still doesn't like to talk about. No amount of accolades can wash that away. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If this breakdown opened your eyes and you want more deep dives into the real stories behind sports legends, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what you think. And as always, see you on the next one.